In the midst of the Bukal Valley of Lebanon lies the story of a people called Armenians in a town called Anjar, an alluring place that everyone seeks for her restaurants and beauty, with none knowing the true story as to how she came into existence. A story engraved in the hearts of her inhabitants. Where she started from and how she came into being is a memory of a distant land in Musa Dagh, on a glorious mountain called Musa Dagh, some 18 kilometers from Antioch. On Musa Dagh, nothing seems to have changed. A mountain overlooking the Mediterranean Sea on the southwest biblical town of Antioch. The very same town where the disciples of Jesus Christ came to preach the good word, where they were called Christians first. A town where not too far from her, the very first nation that accepted Christianity as a state religion, Armenians, once lived and resided in an area called Musa Dagh. They call it Karuk, meaning the city in Armenian. But the world knows her with a different name today. Today, she is part of the Turkish province of Hatay, formerly known as the Gulf of Alexandretta. What was once known as Musa Dagh is no longer. Another Turkish word called Samandagh overtakes Armenian lands. But for Armenians, Musa Dagh is still there, as beautiful as ever, overlooking Musa Dagh with her 6 once Armenian villages. Though the same, something has changed in her. There is a different language that governs her today. Her villages, they have different names, unfamiliar names to the original population, names of a different language, a language of death and spoliation, with a constant reminder of annihilation to more than 6,000 inhabitants that speak an Armenian dialect called Kistinik. It means the language of Christian Armenians. When we're interviewing people and when we're recording information, we're actually passing on information that people didn't have access to before, that is part of that community's real history. So in other words, we're really passing on the real story. This is one of the reasons why we resort to oral history. Because there's a gap that we find where history books are basically telling a minute portion of a community's real history. Now when we're talking about oral history, we're actually filling in those gaps. And we're bringing to light the hidden aspects of a community's real history. So the focus is on real people. The focus is on real voices. Almost a century ago, all those living on these lands were Armenians. But statements of deportation by the Ottoman government of Turkey changed the history of an entire nation. Armenians relate to this as the Medz Yagern, the Armenian Genocide. The month of April of 1915 becomes the beginning of the darkest chapter in Armenian history, with the very first genocide of the 20th century taking place at the hands of Ottoman Turks in an attempt to Turkify Anatolia. The population of hundreds of Armenian villages, towns, cities across the entire Ottoman Empire are ordered to be removed with a methodical and premeditated plan for extermination. Rape, massacres, looting, and murder are everywhere in the land of Anatolia. Whomever remain are to meet their fate on death marches in the Syrian desert. Death strikes the Armenian nation, claiming the lives of 1.5 million victims. Men, women, even the children are exterminated in a Turkish attempt to destroy an entire civilization. And Musa Dagh is also not spared. A statement of deportation is delivered on July 30th of 1915.
Մուսալերցի և քեսապցի երևելի անձնավորությունները ուրեմն ժողով մոկումարեցին Անդիոք, որոշելու թե ինչ կսպասե իրենց, այդ երևելիները մասը ձերբակալվեցավ, ուստի սպասեցին, քանի օր հետո արդեն հուլիսի 30-ին եկավ մուսալերցիներու գաղթելու հրամանը 7 օրվա պայմանաժամով.
Trials of resistance against injustice, crimes, and the deportation edicts take place in many provinces like Urfa, Sassoon, Van, and its surrounding villages, Shabin Karhisar, and many more. With Musa Dagh among them. What becomes special about Musa Dagh are how the events taking place get to be known to the world by Austrian Bohemian novelist and poet Franz Victor Werfel. Fascinated by the struggle of Armenians, he brings their story to the world by writing the 40 Days of Musa Dagh. Villagers decide to retreat onto the mountain of Musa meaning inspiring spirit in Greek. Not only do they organize a resistance to protect their community against the deportations issued by the Young Turks, but they end up having heroic battles on the mountain of Musa with only hunting rifles as their means for defense.
Գրահարացանը այն ադին բادرազմի ամենին փնդրված զենքներ էր 25 պամփուշտ գրահարացանը եւ 2.5 տեղի ոսկի թրքական ոսկի պետք է դառնալու Մուսալերան մեջից 40 օր գրվել է ետքը 5000 թուրք զինվոր գպարսանապանները Եվ այդ 5000 թուրքը չի գրնալ որ ուրեմն այդ քանի մկրբողներում տեն բաներ, որտեղ շատ զանոթ են բաներ, թուփը, ժայռը, արահետներ զանոթ են, եւ անոնքալ թուրքերն չեն գիտեր այդ բոլորը, անագնկալներու արժեվ գտնեն գործել մերիները։ Մեկ-երկու փամփուշտով անագնկալի արժեվ գտնեն ու ամբողջ բանալը։
8 սեպտեմբեր վերջին գրիվներն են Մուսալերան վրա, Թշնամին քանի շրջաններ է հարձակեցավ Մուսալերան վրա, բայց վարդված նահանջեց ընդհանուր նահատակներում թիվը բարձրացնելով 18-ի։
Musaler, she becomes known as the mountain whose story is one of 4,213 Armenians, 4,213 heroes, men, women, children alongside the elderly, climbed the highest mountain of the region, an 1,800-meter mountain where they resist and survive, waiting to be rescued from the attacks of the Turks.
Առաջին գարկի գրվողներ են գլա հայրս, ես ուրախ եմ ատուրավար, հբարդ վերջին ասվոպած։
Their only hope is a miracle on the Mediterranean Sea, a ship that could spot their distress flag, a white sheet marked with a red cross. Another reads, Christians in distress, rescue.
Խոշոր բամը սավա մտրած են ասան, շատ խոշոր, բրան կրած են, քրիստոնյաները բդան գիտակ են, օգնեցեք։ Այդ շրջանն ալ ֆրանսական և անգլիական նավեր գուկան եղեր գաստինատեղ կնության համար, հերով են գնեկատ են գոր և գմոդեն են գոր։
On September 5th of 1915, a French ship, the Guichen, sailing on the northern coast of Syria, spots the Red Cross and the distress flag, but no help reaches the Armenians.
Ֆրանսիայի զովային պատասխանատուները հատկապես զովակալ դարտիչ դֆուրնեի ղեկավարությամբ որոշեցին հայերը բարբել Մուսալերան վրա են։
It is only on the morning of Sunday, September 12th of 1915, an entire week after spotting the flags, commanding officer of the Guichen, Vice Admiral Louis d'Artige du Fournay, no longer awaiting authorization, decides to rescue the trapped Armenians on his own. 4 more vessels arrive to the scene. The Décès, Admiral Charnay, Foudre, and the Distrait, totaling 5 vessels with the Guichen. They bombard Kabusi, blocking the tracks against the Turks. They orchestrate a back and forth to the raft boats, where French sailors do their best to evacuate everyone from the mountain. Armenians, after surviving a siege of 45 days on the mountain of Musaler, get disembarked in Port Said of Egypt. They stay in a refugee camp until the end of the First World War. At the end of 1919, after sustaining 4 long years of hardship, they returned back to the very same lands they had fled from persecution.
Բնականաբար 1919-ին վերադառնալ է, երբ մեր ամբողջովին փլադակ գյուղերը վերականգնեցինք եւ մուսալերան գյուղեր ապրեցան Զարտոնքի շրջանը։
They return, but only to remain in those very same lands until the end of July of 1939, when Musa Dagh ceases from being under French mandate and becomes annexed by Turkey.
Ես 11 տարեկան էի, մուսալեր, բիթյասկյուղեր, ճիշտ այն ադեն, հանգարց իմացանք, որ ֆրանսացիներուն իշխանության տակ կգտնվեր բանը, սանջակը, մուսալերն ալոն է, պիտի հանձնվի թուրքերու։
The idea of living under Turkish rule becomes inconceivable for Armenians. How could they possibly live under the rule of the very same nation that wanted their extermination in 1915? And so, they voluntarily leave their homes and lands. (1939) becomes yet another date engraved in the hearts of the Armenians. A second and the final exodus for the original population of those lands. There is no longer a homeland for Armenians in Musa Dagh. The events described in Berfel's book drive 20 Armenians, with 2 professors and a pastor, to relive the story of Musa Dagh, where they write their own history. It takes place on the very same lands where disaster had struck the Armenian nation almost 100 years ago.
The idea came from the novel, but also from some of my students at Notre Dame University who were Armenian. We discussed this issue and we thought it was something we could do to increase the knowledge of the period by actually going there. And it's doable because it's right across the border from Syria into Turkey, what is today Turkey.
This is their tribute to the 4,213 survivors of Musa Dagh. A tribute to 4,213 Armenian heroes. They set off on their journey on the eve of Thursday, May 2nd of 2013, of the Holy Week of Easter. They embark on a journey they call their journey of pilgrimage. The pilgrimage starts in Adana on Good Friday, full of sadness and increasing pain in everyone's hearts with every inch of a mile taken. These hearts get filled with the memories of the inhuman criminal acts of Turks committed in Adana in 1909 and in 1915 that had exiled their ancestors from the very same land they were standing on, leaving no trace of Armenians. Everyone sees what used to be theirs. Every mile on the way, from Adana to Antioch, eventually reaching Musa Dagh, feels like an eternity. Everything that was Armenian is vanished, and everything standing still has become Turkish. In Musa Dagh, they see old Armenian homes left in the very same state from 1939, while others, they are converted into mangers. An abandoned church they see is recently to be converted into a mosque.
Bu kilisede.
Kiliseydi.
Kiliseyde oldu
Camı.
oldu cama.
Orası yine aynı kilise.
Zamanlar Ermen
Ermeniler yapmış. Ermeniler gelince biz de Türkmenler gelince orayı cami yaptık. Bak minare yaptık. Daha güzel oldu.
This church is very symbolic for Armenians. It is said this is the very same one where the debate had taken place in 1915 to retreat onto the mountain of Musa. The feelings in everyone's hearts are the same: aches and sadness. As for the looks, they are those of heartache, anger and retaliation.
Direkt şablaf gider. Gider aşağı gider haladetine mertun dedi. Ben direkt sen tek mert tutayım. Dedi bir mertene bakak. Ne mert çıkıyor mesela.
Դեսա քարեր, դեսա քերեզմանները որ կացինք վակֆի մեջ մագանները յանով կվերջանային որ եւ ասում թրկական գարավարչան ցեկինդալ են ավելի քիչ բռնեցա բայց անանք դեսակ բռնեցա ոչ թե մարդ զարնել կամ մարդ սպանել այդ դեսակի չէ բայց սիրտից մեջ այրված կներավ որ ասում մեզ չեն.
The Armenian blood shed on those lands was theirs. Even the names read on tombstones had become everyone's names. It almost feels like all are made up of one heart and one look. Walking the narrow streets of the 5 villages from the original 6 of Musa Dagh makes everyone feel like it is 1915 again. There is one difference. Turks from the Balkans are filling the lands of the Armenians, making sure no one would know the true owners of these lands.
Asi araç hayalın er. İren gesen aveli keş kıskatsız kor. Türk meçen istaze yer kezi gese vor asiga araç hayalın er. Katanten astene meziye. Odde ailemes arılan kıskısı nor bortmunen yeral vor garda haydi bir kezi tıketin katin bancarı çıka çenesi. Tıketin katin yer meziye. Aysin ben adi aysof tadaramıyorum met paste meziye. Of tıkı gerta iren tıkalı. Çip am patadır verik bam mene, pat skayaranlar çes kadar patsadır amen varga. Görmez abril hede, himayet hoz darper dixosin, hon kednin vara darper diskat.
It is sad to be a witness to all the change. Yet the pilgrims, adamant to know every detail, do not stop from continuously asking questions to the Turks. They inquire about the homes, the lands, everything they could lay eyes on. For those young men and women, it is a seized moment of inquisition. This is their chance to climb back the very same mountain the Armenians of Musa Dagh had taken refuge in during 1915 for 45 days. This was their hike to a shrine called Musaler, a pilgrimage of life on earth. On Easter Sunday, May 5th of 2013, While Christians celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the hike begins. But none envision how agonizing it is to climb a rigid mountain for 6 hours carrying heavy backpacks. But with resiliency, they reach their first stop.
Ayo.
Ուրացանքոց
Մերին 18 նահատակներում քերեզմանադունն է։ Թեև հայտնի չէ քերեզմանները, բայց
This was the original burial site for the 18 victims of the hike. Sadly, it doesn't even look like a burial site anymore. It is ravaged. With hearts full of aches, the hike continues. After all, the pilgrimage was to climb up to the top, reach the memorial statue, complete the ritual, and head back down on the very same day before dusk. One could only imagine how hard it must have been for them in 1915. Here there were 23 anxious souls, using sophisticated tools, and they were finding great difficulty to reach their destination. At the end of the 5th hour, everyone finally reaches the top of Musa Dagh.
And the hike itself was surprising. I'm an experienced mountain climber myself, many decades of hiking in the Austrian Alps and the Swiss Alps, and then hiking here in Lebanon. I'm used to this. It was grueling, and one of the things that people kept on thinking is, these people, I mean, they were from that region, so they were used to the mountains, but a lot of them were old, or they were children, or they were carrying a lot of household belongings. It was tough for us, so it must have been excruciating for them. It was a very long hike. When we got to the top, it took about 6 hours to get to the top. It just happened to be the Orthodox Easter Sunday, so we had this beautiful, the pastor, the Reverend from Armenian University was along. We had this beautiful Easter Sunday service for all Christians.
With eager hearts, they expect to see a memorial statue. It is meant to be in the form of a boat built out of gratitude to the French for their rescue mission. It is yet another moment of shock. The Turks have blown away the memorial statue with dynamite, just to wipe away yet another trace of the Armenians. What is meant to look like a boat for the pilgrims looks more like a pile of rocks on top of each other. with the majority scattered all over the field. But they remember that this was about Armenian survival, with hopes in their hearts that one day justice will be served. The pilgrims used the scattered stones, carrying them one by one to make a traditional Armenian cross, the khachkar. Each pilgrim lays candles at the center of the khachkar for the 45 days of resistance the Armenians had sustained. Hymns get chanted, prayers get offered to God, tears get shed from heartaches, and questions get raised as to how could this have happened to their people. What justice was this, to be derooted from one's ancestral land, only to have others live on it as if it was always theirs?
Ինքնաբերաբար առաջին բանը որ գմտածես, ինչու գմակցեմ։ Գմակցեմ, որովհետև խորհրդանշական իմաստն էր մեր մակցիլը։ Մակցեմ, որովհետև մենք ինձ մեր ասնի ճամփան բռնած է, վերելած է, չափ զադորում մենք իբրև իրենց հիշադակ կնկատի, որ ինքնաբերաբար ուսալերցնելու բախությունն է։ Վեհեմար չի ինչ է մակցիլը, բայց որ ասենք քիչ մտժվար մարզանքներ, բայց երբ մտածենք իրենք ինչպես ոնք գաբրեին ելեին, իջնեին Անան տարիներ առաջ, ինչպես կրցան բաշպանվիլ լերան կակատը, բնավ թույլ ինչ էր։ Սկսից բավջենը մեկանը միտքից մեջ զերոյեն մտածել և ավելի հասկնալ ինչ եղած էր։ Եվ դերս կմտածես, որ այլ սևերգային, որ թրական աղջին կունենալ և մուսալերցիկ մուսալերան մեջ կունենալ։ Թե իրենց ռազը շիտակցելներ լերան վրա մնան և ուրիշ ջար չդար արտան։
But these young women and men were Armenians, and they always survive. Filling their aching hearts with joy, they begin to dance on the traditional tune of Musa Dagh, rejoicing in the traditional Armenian shurchbar. They remember having survived what Talia Pasha wanted had not happened. Armenians were still here. Their children were still here. Their grandchildren were standing on the very same mountain of their ancestors. It is this very same hike that puts all the pieces of the puzzle together. Now the decision Armenians had taken to leave Alexandretta in 1939, not to be subjected back to the rule of the Turks, makes perfect sense.
Եվ 39-ին է, որ մենք մերժելով թրքական լուծը, գամովի հրաժարելով մեր ամեն ինչը, մեր ինչկերեն, մեր դուներեն, ցկեցինք Մուսալերան շրջանը 23 հուլիս 1939-ին, մնացին 40 օրվա չափասիտի մեջ.
No Armenian was to live under Turkish control, nor the flag of those who wanted the annihilation of their entire people. Families from Vakıf refused to abandon their homes again in 1939, and Vakıf gets to be known as the sole Armenian village left in the occupied lands of Western Armenia. She gets to stay the citrus-growing rural community, but now under Turkish rule and under a Turkish flag. Today, Vakıflı Koyu, once known as Vakıf, is still there. Her 135 inhabitants are there. Her Armenian Apostolic Church, established in 1910, Surp Asfatadzin, is renovated and still stands. However, the fate of the other villages is a continuous reminder to Armenians of what was and what is. The story of the other villages is a different tale with a different fate. Theirs would be that of Lebanon, where the French would relocate them in 1939 into a refugee camp in a small land of the Bekaa Valley. This is where 5,125 Armenians would settle. They helped them build one-room homes, and the Armenians, trying to put their ugly past behind them, readapt the names of their 6 villages in their new piece of land.
Ջաբալ Մուսայի սերունդն ենք, և նույն ձևով մենք հաստատած ենք մեր խդրբակ գյուղը, 6 գյուղերը դարձյալ անջար ճիշտ մուսալերան գյուղերում պես, ունենք Բիտյաս գյուղ, Յոնոլուկ, Գաբիսիա, Հաչհանաբի, խդրբակ և Վաղով։ Ուրեմն այս նույն գյուղերը, ոստեղը նույն բաժանումներով բաժնված և նույն գարավարական նվուսներում մեջ նույնիսկ մեր սջրները եղած են հետևյալ ձևով, նույն ձևով մուսալերյան ձև։
They built a new homeland. It is known as Jabal Musa Anjar in Lebanon. For the Armenians, this is their tiny little paradise in the midst of the Bekaa Valley. This is their new Musa Dagh.